Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory in psychology proposed by Abraham Maslow in 1943. Maslow's hierarchy is usually represented as a pyramid with 5 tiers. The first tier is one's physiological needs such as food, water, sleep, and shelter. The second tier is one's safety needs. Safety needs include personal, emotional, and financial security, as well as health and well-being. Once a person meets those needs, they can begin to climb the tiers to social belonging. Social belonging includes friendships, intimacy, and family. From there, a person can move to the 4th tier of self-esteem, and finally the last tier of self-actualization. Self-actualization refers to one realizing who they are and all they are able to be. I want to focus on the first 2 tiers and how poverty can affect students fulfilling those needs. According to Carol Carter, children in poverty often come from less educated and involved parents, lack supervision, and don't have equal learning experiences to her affluent counterparts, and are more likely to drop out of high school or end up in jail. Most of this stems from the fact that less educated parents cannot obtain high-paying jobs. Parents resort to either working multiple minimum wage jobs, so they're not at home, which includes not giving supervision to their children, or they live off of government checks. Children living in poverty, in turn, are less likely to see the importance of school because they grow up in an environment where there is no emphasis on education. They are not provided resources that their otherwise wealthier counterparts have, and are either allowed to miss school or their parents are unaware that they are missing school because they are constantly at work. These students who are not made to go to school end up dropping out altogether or end up getting locked up because they are out roaming the streets unsupervised and getting into trouble. Some of the students who live in poverty but do go to school are only there because they are not having their physiological needs met at home. They do not have food or water, so they come to school just so they can eat. However, these students are not learning in the classroom because they are more worried about eating than they are about obtaining knowledge. Since these students are having their physiological needs not met at home, they cannot properly climb the tiers and reach self-actualization. They cannot see what they can accomplish and become, because they are always worried about survival rather than improving themselves. Another factor that is negatively affecting children in poverty is cited in Eric Jensen's book, Teaching with Poverty in Mind. He said that compared with their well-off peers, 2 to 4-year-olds from low-income families interact with aggressive peers 40% more often in their neighborhoods and 25% more often in child care services. And numerous studies document that caregivers' disciplinary strategies grow harsher as income decreases. This harsh and violent atmosphere causes children to feel unsafe and unwanted. These factors prevent them from fulfilling the safety needs they have. They become emotionally unstable, and when they cannot fulfill the second tier of Maslow's hierarchy, it prevents them from efficiently climbing the ladder to self-actualization, and they never reach their full potential. My field educator is Todd Poe. Todd has experience as a gen ed teacher teaching world history for 3 years and as an intervention specialist for 3 years. He has firsthand experience in dealing with many students from poverty. I want to bring him in to bring some insight to these issues. Thank you, Todd, for taking this time to join me. Now, we know that poverty is a huge issue going on in schools and society as a whole. What I want to know is how much or to what extent do you believe poverty affects students when it comes to meeting the physiological and safety needs laid out in Maslow's hierarchy of needs and their progression toward self-actualization?
I believe that it is greatly affecting the students to a point that we as teachers don't factor it into our daily lessons how much it is impacting them. Students who are not having their needs met at home, not enough food, sleep, proper shelter, etc., not focused on school. They don't have the proper balance of diet and rest to be performing at their best, so they come to school tired and hungry. Learning is not their top priority. I would say that their mind would not be at ease and conducive to learning because they're thinking about where their next meal will come from, where they'll be sleeping at night, and all the other factors outside of school that impact their lives. School is one place they can get 2 meals. For example, here they can get breakfast for free and lunch. They are not viewing it as a place to learn, but a safe haven for a few hours of the day. Students in poverty oftentimes come from broken homes. They are not always living with both parents or even their parents at all, so this is impacting their lives. They do not feel loved at home. They may not feel like anybody cares about them. These are other factors that are bringing to school with them. School personnel might be the only true relationship or instance in their lives where they feel cared for. They come to school with all of this in their head. How likely are they to have high self-esteem, to feel like they can be a success and achieve in school with so much going on in their home lives? Poverty has an impact far beyond what we as teachers think about when a student walks into our classroom. We're focused on, do they have a paper, pencil, or are they paying attention? Because for 40 minutes we're focused on the subject area of the day's lesson. Meanwhile, the student living in poverty is worried about all the other factors of their life, and the motivation and desire for school is not there, and who can blame them?
I like that you picked up on the fact that a lot of the students from poverty only see support at the schools. They don't have that background at home of people caring for them, and they really do only have the teachers and staff at the schools that actually try to support their education and improve them. But what do you think teachers, schools, and society in general can do to assist those in poverty to help meet those physiological and safety needs?
I would say that schools have taken a fairly decent approach to helping those in need. A lot of schools have implemented free breakfast for all students, not just those needing assistance. They have the free and reduced lunch for those who have financial difficulties. At the elementary level in some districts, they will pack backpacks with a few meals to help families get through the weekend. So I believe that schools are well equipped on the nutritional aspect as far as getting them food, helping families, as I mentioned. But the difficulty comes with housing, proper shelter. That costs a lot more money and takes a lot more resources to make happen. So that is an area that I feel is lacking, that we as professionals in the school setting sometimes have difficulty making that a success or finding a place for them to have shelter. I believe that we could, as schools, work better with organizations like the Salvation Army, for example, to make sure students who are homeless are finding shelter at night, they have a place to go and not sleeping on the street, bouncing from house to house, or sleeping in their vehicles. I think that the state has done a fairly good job of helping out individuals, but a lot of that help is limited to students with disabilities. Not every student that needs help has a disability, so they do not always qualify for the services provided by the state. A possible solution would be to expand services offered by the state to students and families without disabilities. As always, it comes down to funding, so where would the money come from is the big question. In 2016-2017, I know that's a few years ago, but that's the most recent data I found, $500 million was allocated to human services in the state, compared to $3.7 billion for corrections. The state has to make poverty an issue, has to allocate money to try and help before any real change can be accomplished. Small things can be done at local levels, through agencies and fundraising to some degrees, as you'll see throughout districts of families being helped through a fundraiser if they're in hard times. But real change will only come from the state making a conscientious effort to help combat poverty.
I agree. I think that poverty is an issue that can't just be solved by one entity, and it is going to be a team effort in order to solve this issue because it's only getting worse as the years go on. Now, do you believe if we are able to help students overcome their position in poverty and provide those physiological and safety needs they require, can we close the achievement gap between the have and have-nots?
I would say yes and no. In a perfect world, I'd like to think that if every student was having their needs met outside of school, they would be worry-free from outside distractions when they came to school. They would be focused, ready and willing to learn, and that their state scores would back that up. It would show that, if they're getting proper nutrition, proper rest, have a proper place to stay, then they would be good to go. But on the other hand, I think that there's still the motivational factor in the one. Does a student want to learn? Does a student place a high value on school? Is the one area and the most important area, I feel, when it comes to student learning. The student has to want to learn, has to want to put in time and effort, and has to want to be successful in school. We as teachers can do everything in our power. We can have perfect lessons, perfect delivery, and do everything by the book. But if the student doesn't want to hold up their end of the deal, it won't matter in the end.
So basically what you're saying is that poverty does negatively affect students, and schools and teachers do have a responsibility to try and provide as much as we can for them, any resources that they may need in the classroom. But while we may be providing everything that we can, there's still that outside influence from home and where they're growing up that actually deters the students from getting a proper education because no matter what we do as teachers, there are limitations to what we can actually achieve just on our own. And the most we can really do is provide the proper resources to our students and try to give as much motivation as we can.
Absolutely. I think it's well said.
I have 3 goals from this field-based activity. 1 is to provide a classroom environment that is unbiased and supportive of everyone. Creating an environment where students of poverty feel safe is essential to their learning. 2, to provide resources to every student, such as pencils, papers, folders, binders, and anything else they may need for school. Many students from poverty do not have access to these materials, and it adversely affects their education. Providing these resources will reduce the stress they have about obtaining these materials and assist them in their education. And 3, to provide a shoulder for these students to lean on. Many do not have much support outside of school and need someone who is there for them. Providing this will help them feel appreciated and give them more motivation to try harder in school and actually put an effort in.